We are back at CBY Spotlight when Rebbe Wemberger and I take an opportunity to put the spotlight on one of our members to let the community at large get to know you. Tonight we are here with Jeff Mayer. Thanks for joining us tonight.
My pleasure. Good Vach.
Good Vach. Jeff, our first question that we always start with is, have you ever been on a podcast before?
I have.
You have?
Work-wise, through work, many times.
Can you share what kind of a podcast is it?
It's talking about what it is that was going on at the company. I work for a company called AmTrust Financial Services. It's actually an $8 billion revenue company, insurance company. I'm both the chief actuary and the chief risk officer. Interesting tidbit about AmTrust is that it was founded by and still run by ultra-Orthodox frum people. The original founder was one of the Forbes 400 family. So we combined business and running a major insurance company with all that's involved with that, along with shiurim and davening. We founded a shul down on Pine Street. So it's very interesting.
That's amazing. We're going to get back into some of that.
I look forward.
Now, B'nai Yisrael is not an $8 billion institution, just a little bit less than that. But can you answer honestly?
On the asset side or on the liability side?
But which podcast were you more excited to join? This one? Or?
Oh, this one, absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
I just wanted to make sure.
Absolutely.
Now, for the benefit of our listeners who don't know you, could you quickly tell us about your family, how long you've been in Teaneck, just introduce yourself, your family, what's your minion of choice in B'nai Yisrael?
Absolutely. So just going back even a little bit before B'nai Yisrael, my wife Malki and I both were born and raised on the Lower East Side. We got married at a very young age of 18 and 19 respectively. We lived on the East Side for a couple of years after marriage. We moved to Fairlawn for a few years and moved into Teaneck in 1988, so we're here just over 34 years.
Wow.
And the minion of choice, certainly on Shabbos, is the 9 o'clock minion.
9 o'clock, okay.
All right, Jeff, we're recording here on Moto Shabbos. First of all, I want to ask you, are you Good Vach or Shavua Tov?
Good Vach.
Okay, Good Vach to you, Jeff.
Good Vach to you.
If people are wondering why Jeff is wearing the white shirt, we should point out it's Moto Shabbos. So on a Moto Shabbos...
Well, as opposed to if it was a Monday or Tuesday, you expect to see me in my running shorts and that shirt.
Exactly, you usually do. And at some point you're working for this $8 billion company.
Right.
But when you're not on a podcast on Moto Shabbos, what does your normal Moto Shabbos look like?
It's actually fairly consistent. It begins with about an hour workout, exercise. I'm usually on a stationary bike in the evening, running through Teaneck streets. It's probably not the smartest thing to do. And it's not even the cars that I'm worried about. It's the broken, it's the streets that worry me more. Followed by a little bit of work, just following up on some emails that may have come through. And then it's sitting with Malki and, watching a show or movie or just talking and actually even learning a little bit with her. Oh. So you sound surprised by that.
You know. All right, so now I don't know, you mentioned you're coming to the 1250 Rabbi Schreier-led Slichos, or AJ-led.
Yeah, so that normally, of course, that would have been the Slichos of choice, but given that I'm still on London time, the 10 o'clock Slichos at Rabbi Shimon Tenenbaum is in the future.
You mentioned you're still on London time, so you just got back from London.
I did.
How was the trip to London? Did you attend the Queen's Levaya?
So actually, it was a little different. So I was first in Dublin. Malki actually joined me. So we were in Dublin for a few days for work, and then from there went on to London also for work. Malki, being Malka Queen, she's interviewing for the position.
Oh, that's great.
And right now she's in the running. Charles doesn't have that much on her. So, but it was, thank God, it was successful. The flights, everything worked out well. The most difficult part was actually getting from the airport in London to our hotel. They somehow had the chutzpah of closing some of the streets because of the funeral. Malki did say that one of the days when I was working, she went off just kind of walking the streets and running and trying to get around a little bit. And she said there was, what was it? I think it was a 10-hour wait line waiting to get to see the Queen. She did not participate. Specifically, as I told, she had to be back at a certain time for dinner. But I
heard it was up to someone else who was there said it was up to 19.
19
so
hours.
Kach Shemati.
Yeah, it's it could be. I mean, that's they're closed. The country is closing down on Monday. But it was nice. It was a great trip, and I was on a subway both in Dublin and in London, and that I haven't been on a subway in New York City in probably 30 years. So that was actually interesting. Yeah.
All right, so you mentioned before briefly, but if you want to give us just a quick background of your upbringing, schools, when you got it, yeah.
Sure. So as I said before, I grew up, as did Mark, we both grew up on the Lower East Side. I went through all 12 years of school at MTJ, Tiferes Yerushalayim, or Moshe's Yeshiva. I had, and seriously, and I wear it as a badge of honor, certainly anybody who knows me and talks to me, that I had the schus of sitting as close, Rabbi Shrai and Rabbi Weinberg, as we are sitting here right now, which is all of what, 3 feet or 4 feet. For 6 years, I sat that close to Rav Moshe, literally in this position. How I achieved that, I'm not sure, but I wear it as a badge of honor, and I honestly consider it one of the protections and the schuyas that I have. I was holding the chumash for him every Monday and Thursday.
Was in a shear framework?
No. This was in Daven. No, I'm sorry. This was in Daven. So I was never in a shear with him, but our family was very close. Subsequently, my brother-in-law, I grew up, I was friends with Rav Moshe's grandson, Rav David's son, Morty. My brother-in-law ended up learning, we can get into that a little bit more later, with Rav David, became, I think, certainly his Talmud Muvak, and has written Sfarim for Rav David, but for 6 years, this close, for davening with Rav Moshe, held the chumash for him during Laney. We would each get up and walk across a few feet just so he should look into the chumash with me, and then he would go back between aliyahs to continue learning, which made an impact. At the time, I thought he must be cramming for a study, for a test or something, but it was very, very memorable, very impactful, and something I said I wear as a badge of honor.
Wow.
I never knew that. We speak a lot. Somehow this doesn't come up in our frivolous conversation.
Exactly. No, absolutely. And over the years, and again, being serious, I mean, the Rosh Yeshiva teaching me how to put on the tefillin in the middle of davening, telling me to move it to the left, to the right. Now, the pressure, I mean, everything's positive about it. It's very difficult to find the negative, but of course, I can. And the negative is when davening's over, finish, let's say, 8:30, class starts at 9, time for breakfast, or a basketball game in the backyard. Everybody else is taking off their tefillin right at 8:30. They're off, they're at the game, and I have to kind of go at a different pace because the Rosh Yeshiva is right there. So I figured out
Explains your slow development on the court.
But I had an answer for it. I was a sharp guy then. I brought the basketball, so if I can't play, nobody plays.
Smart move. So you spend all those years in MTJ. How does your career, how does your schooling proceed after that?
So after I graduated MTJ high school, I graduated young. I was 16 when I finished high school. I then went on to Brooklyn College. At the time, going to Israel wasn't necessarily something that many, at least of my peers, did. I went on to Brooklyn College. I graduated college at 19. I had a math and an economics degree. And at some point before that, I had an eye on becoming an actuary. I was very good and had an affinity for math. I enjoyed it. Somebody had told me about actuarial work. My high school teacher had told me about it. So I started taking exams at a very young age, graduated college at 19, and began working really right after that as an actuary at 19. And another badge of honor, different than I think the one that I mentioned about the Rosh Yeshiva, is that I was actually, at the time, I don't know if it still holds, but at the time was the youngest individual in the country to complete all of the actuarial exams. I did that at, I think it was 23 at the time.
Wow. In the country? I thought it was New York.
No, in the country. Yeah.
How do you know? How do you find out about that?
Right, that's a great question. So they do have the age. My mother's very good. She would not tell me anything that wasn't true. You have the age that they would post the age of the individual. And by chances are that hasn't held up in subsequent years, but at the time it was.
So have you met the guy or gal who broke it? You haven't?
No, I have not.
You mentioned before you work for a company started by ultra-Orthodox Jews. I don't know if those are Hasidim or did they, I'm curious, we're filming this, we're going to release it later. It might be an old story by then, but the New York Times had an article this past week which got some press about the failures of the Hasidic school system. I'm curious, is that akin to the demographic of the, did they read the article? Did they have a strong take?
No, I'm sure they have, and I'm sure they do have read the article and have a strong take. So this is a family that lives in Borough Park. The founder, and I'm happy to say it, the founder is a Carfunkel family with a K, tremendous Balstukis. They founded He founded the insurance company back in 1998. Before that, they were in the real estate business. American Stock Transfer was another company that they founded. The CEO was born in LA, went on to go to yeshiva in Philadelphia Yeshiva, very close with Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky. Ended up getting his MBA at NYU. But children who go to yeshiva, but certainly they respect and understand real education and surround themselves with lawyers and with actuaries and other professionals, but are also very, very close with the Hasidish and yeshivish type communities. And as I said, they founded a shul not that long ago, a couple of years ago. It was during COVID, down in the Wall Street area, which is something to behold. It's something that's worth actually coming down and taking a look at. On Pine Street, right across from near the Federal Reserve Building. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful shul, magnificent. And the Magachir, the Rosh Kollel there now, is actually Mati Newberger. Rabbi Newberger actually serves as the Rosh Kollel there.
Do you attend any this year?
I do. I mean,
nice.
and that's part of going to Mincha. Well, there's a Shachris at 8 o'clock. There's learning that begins at 6:30. The shul opens up every day, 6:30 to 8. 8 o'clock is Shachris. A phenomenal breakfast is served afterwards. Then there's learning, going until 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock's Mincha, learning again until 6. But the events that have taken place there, both from Hachnas Sifrei Torah, from Shever Brachas, from speakers, Rav Lichtenstein has been there. They've had Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky has been there. The Gedolim, some of the greatest Gedolim have been. It's a tremendous place. He's done great stuff there. Wow. So.
Now, Malki is also an actuary?
She is.
Does she work with you, or is she smarter than that?
Both. No and yes.
Okay, easy enough.
So no, Malki does, and look, I mean, you can imagine the dating. How could we not have got married? Two young people talking about math, and it was
quite romantic.
Yeah, it was quite romantic. We figured out the probabilities of this happening. So we made it work. But she's worked as an actuary for all the years that we're married, but always was able to work it out that she never had to leave the house while the kids were growing up. So the kids, while they knew that mommy worked and was successful in her own right, but she was always there to see them off and to be home when they came home. And she still continues to work at a different position than maybe years ago, but it's actually completely remotely now. So it's fantastic. Great.
All right, so we're going to shift now. We have some more rapid fire questions that, if you give us quicker answers, if you want to elaborate, feel free to, and just get to know a different side of you. First, beginning the rapid fire, we usually ask our contestants if you have any hidden talents. So knowing you, I assume the talents aren't so hidden. But is there anything else outside of your math?
No, so I'll get into talents. I'm hidden or not hidden, but I'll get into some talents and then actually the actual reverse, the 180 degrees opposite of that. So from talents is I do have a strong affinity with numbers and the ability to actually sort of help run a company this big with numbers all in my head. The ability to do the mental math and to understand and to anchor. And I don't know how to use a computer. I have a computer, and its purpose for me is solely to check email. I don't know how to use Excel. Now, I'm an actuary, a risk officer. I don't know how to use Excel. Yet I can sit with all these younger people who work with me, for me, and they're clicking away and doing things on the computer, and I have every number in my head. During COVID, Mark and I drove down to Dallas to see my daughter. We can talk more about that. And I held meetings through my head without having to look at a piece of paper or a computer.
If you could choose a different profession from the one you are in, and money were not a factor, what would you choose?
Yeah, so I really enjoy and think that I am good at and is working with kids. So whether it's coaching, teaching math over the years, I've had the opportunity to tutor kids in math, and often just people that I know. At other times, it's people that, if I go back, years ago, I was president of Y&J, and I had an arrangement.
Speaking to two Y&J parents.
Correct. This goes back 25 years ago or more, and I had an arrangement with the principal that if he's aware of children who could use some tutoring and can't necessarily afford to pay tutor, they should come to me. And so I would work with them. So I really enjoyed that. And if you can throw in some sports playing along with it, that was a real joy. I mean, I thought that I was effective, and I really enjoyed it. In addition, or separately, I find the idea of surgery, of doing heart surgery or brain surgery. Maybe it's just to be able to say, if someone says, it's not brain surgery, you say, no, but I'm a brain surgeon, right? The opportunity to use that line. But and that's sort of an intellectual dream that would never have happened. But the idea of working with kids and tutoring, and I haven't done it in a number of years, and COVID got in the way, but for many years I was doing that. People either that I knew and that I wanted to help, and I knew they came to me, but many times it was parents or children who couldn't necessarily afford the tutoring, so I would work with them. So.
All right, if you could have dinner with any one person alive today, who would it be?
So I'll stray from the live part of it. I very much, so my father was nipped 8 years ago. I think, and that sounds like a very knee-jerk, reflexive, almost expected answer, but it's true. And the reasons, besides just the obvious, is that I think a chance to sort of once again, ask Mechila if there was something he did wrong. I think it would be a chance to express both love and admiration for what he was able to accomplish that maybe you don't do as good a job when you're in the in the middle of the game and to hopefully be able to express and show him the nachas that he has, hopefully from Malki and me and our family, our 2 children and Kanai, our 8 grandchildren, but also from his extended family and the way his children have come together and help each other, and each child has certain needs or whatever, and I think the other children come together and help, and I think he would appreciate that, and so I think that's something that would be great. Yeah.
A follow-up we asked is if you could have dinner with any past or present CBY rabbi, only one, who would it be?
So it's not hard. I think you can't tell perhaps, but I'm one who enjoys a 3-course dinner. So I think for each course, I would have each one of the
very diplomatic. Very diplomatic.
If it's on you, we're in.
What's that?
If it's on you, we're in.
Do you have a favorite book, movie, series?
Yeah, absolutely. So, favorite book is, it's not the one you say, Alan Greenspan and this one, The Great Generation by Tom Brokaw. The books, and people who know me and see me in shul, is I very much enjoy reading the Art Scroll books, and it sounds maybe simplistic, on the Gedolim. I can read, so whether it's in Rav Moshe, obviously, Rabbi Yaakov, and the Stipler, and I can read those.
The Rabbi Yaakov one is particularly good.
That's absolutely, and not for me to say, but one I think, I understand, I know what you mean. And the one from Rav Moshe, I actually know so many of the stories, so it resonates a certain way. The ones with Rabbi Yaakov it's an amazing, and because who he was, this giant is almost a regular person. Everything about it is how he was such a personable individual. But I very much enjoy those, and some of my friends who will sit next to me in shul will say, "Yes, those are it's Art Scroll, not everything. It's almost fiction. It's simple." I said, maybe. Although I know the Rav Moshe, so there's some credibility there. I said, maybe yes, maybe not, but I know they're not saying these things about me. The question is, did Rav Moshe finish Shas 300 times? I don't know, but no one's accusing me of finishing Shas 300 times.
One day.
Movies or TV shows. So movies, I really enjoy A Few Good Men, Aaron Sorkin movie with Nicholson and Cruz. I thought that was great. And TV shows, 2 genres. The comedic side, everybody who knows me would know it's Seinfeld, and on the more serious side, it was West Wing. I thought it was a really well-written story. Also Sorkin, which probably says something.
Can't say I've seen it, but I've heard people like it. So
West
you're
Wing?
in good company.
It's great. Very well written show.
All right, Jeff, who's your favorite athlete of all time? Besides yourself, obviously.
Is there another one? Yaakov and Dov, no question. If I couldn't say myself, because your father would have a hard time with that. I'll tell you the story in a second on that. I think it's Jordan. I mean, and it's not only because of just how great he was, right? And it was a time we watched him play in the late 80s and into the 90s, where my son Yaakov, who was born in 85, so he started watching. So it was something that together we were able to watch and go to games. A quick story on Jordan: was a very good friend of ours. He had tickets to the Nets Bulls in the Meadowlands. This goes back, Yaakov was 3-4 years old. This goes back 30 plus years. And great seats. We finished the game. Not only that, but he had tickets. We were able to go. We had a pass to go right near the locker room. We couldn't go in the locker room only because we had kids with us. He waited outside and waiting for the players. And I'm holding Yaakov. He's 3, 4 years old. And out comes Horace Grant. I don't know if you remember Horace Grant. Horace Grant was a forward, played with Jordan. And Yaakov sees, he knows Horace Grant, 6'9". I said, Yaakov, I whispered to Yaakov, say hi to Horace. And Yaakov at 3, 4 years old says, nice game, Horace. And Horace turns around and says, we lost, kid. But then Michael came out and with somebody else who then noticed that Yaakov was wearing a Michael Jordan yarmulke. And Michael asked, are we getting royalties on that?
Oh, yeah?
So that's what I remember, yeah.
Nice, good interaction.
Because he needed it, and Michael,
Of course.
So.
All right, Jeff, what's the most interesting thing in your house?
Most interesting. So it would be, I think, and going back to some of what we said earlier, it would be a sefer that the Mechaber, the author, was my brother-in-law, who I mentioned before, wrote Reb David, called V'dibarta Bam. A sefer that my brother-in-law, who's a huge Talmid Chacham, tremendous Talmid Chacham, grew up in California, got his smicha at Chafetz Chaim, but then went on to learn with Reb David as his Talmid Mubak. And I formed with him a Yisachar Zvulun. And I was the Zvulun, just to be clear. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And for 15 years, Malki and I supported his learning. And one of the, many outcomes of that, but one of the outcomes was this sefer that he wrote. It was basically the equivalent, I would call it the equivalent of Igros Moshe, but for Reb David. It's all about Reb David's Piskei Halacha. And we did it in memory of Malki's father and in honor of, at the time, my parents and Malki's mother. And there was a great, there was a dinner when it came out. And that's something, again, you talk about badge of honor is something that I think provides a protection for our house and for ourselves. Literally 15 years of that arrangement. So it was very, very powerful. Now, interestingly, one of the things I try to think about with that particular issue was that my brother-in-law, his parents, are fabulously wealthy people. His father was Nifter. The name, Moskowitz. His name's all over the great synagogue in Israel. He buys up the properties in the old city. And yet, this chus came to us. On the surface, you would think that it would be, okay, so somebody else would. But we had that opportunity, and it's an example of when a mitzvah comes your way, when opportunity comes your way, and I think it was one of the great investments that we've made. So,
beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff, in theory, we like to end with a little CBY trivia. Some of our guests have been newer members, so we felt like it was unfair. But someone like you, this is going to be a walk in the park.
We'll see.
Can you name the past 5 presidents of Congregation B'nai Sherman?
Probably not even the current one. So, Ethan Kaiser, Margulies, Shri Tannenbaum.
All right, Jeff. That was a good effort. I could be wrong.
It was a good effort. Thanks so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you.